Welcome to the first installment of the Spoken Conspiracies Armageddon Conspiracy Presentations. Today we're presenting a book by Jack Tanner called Zarathustra's Out-of-Body Experience: How Humans Become Angels. We'll be presenting this book in 1 hour blocks, and then once the book is fully uploaded, we will make a playlist of all the 1 hour blocks in chronological order. If you like this content and you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button. There's no more support you can give me than give me a subscribe, and I'll do my damnedest to get you audiobooks that you're interested in, whether it be Hermetic, Esoteric, the Armageddon Conspiracy line of audiobooks, or even Luciferian esoteric writings. So a little bit of history is about this book. The book begins with a parable, kind of a story of talking about a sage named Zarathustra. And it's interesting to note that it's kind of a metaphorical reference to the author itself within the parable of a little girl that's very wise and very understanding. Because little do people know who don't get into the depths of the conspiracy deep within the rabbit hole of the Armageddon conspiracy. The original three authors were Michael Faust, Mike Hockney, Adam Weishaupt. You can still find their books on Amazon.com. I urge you to check it out. Those are some of the original Grandmaster writings of the Armageddon conspiracy. Well, at some point, Generation 1 ceased to exist. They ceased to write anything more, and a new generation was invented. But the new generation was just a reinvention of the original three writers. Michael Faust became Jack Tanner. Adam Weishaupt became Mark Rommel. And Mike Hockney became Dr. Thomas Stark. Now we're in a new generation, and Stark, Hockney, and Weishaupt, Rommel, Tanner, Faust are still writing, but there's a new generation of kids that are joining them. Look like they're talented authors. Maybe we'll showcase some of their works, and I encourage you, if you like the work, you may want to go to Amazon.com and buy the Kindle version, or subscribe to Kindle Unlimited and see if any of the titles are offered on Kindle Unlimited. But please support the author if you enjoy their work. This community universal outreach program that we're sponsoring is mainly just to expose people to the tip of the iceberg of the material, but you do have a moral obligation, if you enjoy a work, to at least give something back to the author. And what I was saying about the girl is representative of the writer. Now, I'm fairly certain that the writer, who uses the pseudonym Michael Faust and Jack Tanner, is a woman who writes Christian theological books in real life with her real name. I won't divulge that name because it would kind of be a dick move and counter-purposeful to the purpose of her having a pseudonym, but she is kind of alluding to the fact that she is a girl in the parable of the metaphor at the beginning of the book. So without further ado, I'm going to present Jack Tanner's new book, Zarathustra's Out-of-Body Experience: How Humans Become Angels. Keep in mind, this book is part of a slew of books that was recently released by Mrs. Jack Tanner. And Miss Tanner, she was on a hiatus for a while, And now she has come back on the scene by simultaneously publishing 10 different books, which is pretty momentous, but being that she's actually the face of Michael Faust in his grave, I wouldn't be surprised that Michael Faust would do something like this. Without further ado, I present the work. Computer, start at the beginning of the book.
Dream world that only... Resuming your most recent book, Zarathustra's out-of-body experience, how humans become angels. Require any body at all, but your mind can, if it likes, imagine one for you. This is known as your residual body image.
Start from the beginning.
He gave a little fist pump. The descent. Just as he had done once before many years earlier, Zarathustra descended from the mountaintop to the picturesque village at the mountain's foot. The curious villagers immediately gathered around the venerable old man. Some thought him a great wizard, others a noble sage, others a silly old eccentric. I have come to teach you the secret path to understanding everything, Zarathustra said, his voice noticeably weaker than the last time he had spoken here. The years had taken their toll, yet his eyes remained bright with his genius and determination. You will experience the truth for yourself. You don't need to accept anyone's word for it. The people looked at each other and weren't sure what to make of what the old man was saying. A generation earlier, the adults had called him crazy and the children had made rude gestures and thrown stones at him. The old man smiled. Let me be clear. Everything you think about reality is based on having a physical body in a physical world. What I want to ask you is, what if you could still be in this world but without a physical body? What if you had a spirit body, free of all physical constraints? Wouldn't you see everything with totally different eyes? Wouldn't your perspective on everything change? What you currently believe is based on what you currently experience via your physical senses, your embodied senses. If you had a completely different sensory experience, a discarnate sensory experience, you would have completely different beliefs. Your entire worldview would be transformed. Life would never be the same again. At last, your eyes would be truly opened. Are you a miracle worker? A villager asked. A magician? How are you going to accomplish this wonder you speak of? Another villager asked. I have come to teach you the secret of out-of-body experiences, Zarathustra said resolutely, his jaw jutting out. Storm clouds immediately appeared overhead. Fierce lightning flashed across the sky. Zarathustra grinned. You see, the archons are angry. They want to stop me from revealing the truth. They want to stop you acquiring the same powers they enjoy. The villagers seemed afraid. Was the old man defying the gods? Was he stealing their sacred fire, their holy thunder, their forbidden lightning bolts? Mortals must never challenge the gods. Zarathustra gestured to everyone to be calm. Gather round, friends. Let me explain everything. He gave a gentle smile. I shall speak first of the two trees. The villagers looked quizzically at the old man. The universe is made of two trees, Zarathustra said, namely, the tree of mind and the tree of body. The tree of mind exists outside space and time, while the tree of body exists in space and time. His eyes twinkled, as if he were opening presents for expectant children. What does it mean to be outside space and time? It means to be in an eternal, immaterial singularity. The singularity is nothing with regard to space and time, but something with regard to itself. The singularity is both something and nothing, a something with a net value of nothing. Science can't get at it because science, when it tries to find the singularity, sees only nothing. Science, catastrophically, is unable to distinguish between nothing at all, and net nothing resulting from a perfectly balanced something with exactly equal positive and negative components. All of the problems of science stem from this simple fact of being unable to explore the true nature of nothing. The mind is net nothing, which is exactly why science can say nothing about the mind and cannot detect the mind. Science irrationally concludes that mind doesn't exist, rather than reach the alternative rational conclusion that there are rational entities that, of their nature, cannot be part of the scientific paradigm, but can certainly be part of a greater paradigm that knows how to accommodate the two numbers 0 and infinity, both of which are forbidden by science. It is simply astounding how much science has been handicapped by its inability to understand and address 0 and infinity. The omission of these two numbers from science has rendered science inconsistent, incomplete, and incoherent. These two numbers are the mind numbers, the two numbers science cannot accommodate. Descartes said centuries ago that mind was unextended and matter extended. This equates to mind as defined by zero and infinity, and matter by everything between zero and infinity. Reality, zero to infinity, with everything in between, requires mind and matter to both be addressed, but science deliberately excludes mind, the unextended, the dimensionless, the net zero, the unobservable. That's exactly where science goes wrong. To return to the tree of mind, it is, according to Plato, the perfect, unchangeable form of the tree. It's an incorruptible idea. It has no physical location. You don't see actual trees in your dreams, physical trees, you see only tree forms, ideas of trees. As for the tree of body, it is always changing. It decays. Its death is certain. It is informed by the form of the tree of mind, but it is a material object. It has particular content, and all particular content is temporal and contingent. Mind is outside space and time, while matter belongs to space and time. When your body, your matter, dies, your mind does not. Your mind was never in space and time in the first place, and therefore cannot die in space and time. Your mind is eternal, not temporal. It has always existed, and it always will exist. To exist is its essence. Its existence is necessary. It is impossible for it not to exist. It is zero infinity, and zero infinity can never perish. It goes on infinitely, forever. Nothing can stop nothing, nothing can destroy nothing, nothing needs nothing, so nothing is therefore inevitable and everlasting. Nothing is the most stable thing there is. Nothing is mind. Mind is ontological zero, net zero, that lasts forever, infinitely. Beyond this valley, brothers and sisters, you will find the scientists who will tell you that mind exists in space and time because it is constructed from matter, and therefore dies when the material body dies. This is the greatest lie. You will never understand reality if you listen to the scientists. The scientists say you are an illusion. They say you are unreal. They say you are just an ephemeral collection of atoms, meaningless, purposeless, pointless, and valueless. They say you have no free will. They say you are simply the puppet or robot of scientific forces. Scientists are the prophets of nihilism. Do not venture into their valley. You will never understand existence if you do. In their valley, they refuse to accept the tree of mind. They cannot see it. For these people, only what is perceived by the senses exists. They refuse to accept the existence of what is conceived by the mind. What the mind mathematically conceives is what the mind constructs. This is a mentally, which is to say mathematically, constructed reality. A little girl, playing in a puddle, stopped splashing and pushed forward. Without a physical body, anyone can fly, she said excitedly. Zarathustra smiled. You see, even the children understand. He threw the girl a shiny red apple as a reward. Now we come to another two trees, he said. These are the tree of the unconscious and the tree of the conscious. Each belongs to the tree of mind. Each needs an outlet to the tree of body. Zarathustra's gray hair was perfect for a sage. He looked like the archetypal wise old man. Most people imagine they have one brain and one mind, he said. In fact, the brain has two hemispheres, capable of independent existence. Two brains means two minds, one for each hemisphere, each with its own separate and distinct nature. The conscious mind links to the left hemisphere and the unconscious mind to the right hemisphere. What is the difference between the conscious and the unconscious? The little girl asked, before taking a big, loud bite of her apple. Zarathustra clapped his hands. Wonderful question. His eyes gleamed and his face beamed. With the unconscious, we experience the world. With the conscious, we reflect on our experiences, both now and in the past, and we imagine experiences we might have in the future. We might refer to the unconscious mind as the passive, instinctive mind and the conscious mind as the active, reasoning mind. Or we might say that the unconscious mind is our animal mind, the mind we have in common with animals, and the conscious mind is what makes us human. But what is it that makes us conscious? The girl asked, impatiently waving her apple in front of her. What allows us to reflect? Zarathustra's old face seemed to shed many years, as if the girl had miraculously renewed his youth. She will grow up to be your leader, he said. One so wise, so young, will become a wondrous guide for you all. He stroked his chin, a thoughtful look passing over his intense, piercing blue eyes. You cannot reflect on your experiences with your experiences, he said. You cannot reflect on love with love. If you feel love, you feel love. That's the love right there. It's not anywhere else. To reflect on love, you must deal with something that does not belong to feelings, something that is separate from feelings since it is not itself a feeling. There is only one thing that concerns love, but on the face of it has nothing to do with the feeling of love. Can anyone tell me what it is? The little girl eagerly threw up her hand. The concept of love, she yelled. Top of the class, Zarathustra said, clearly delighted with the response. A philosopher can discuss the concept of love even though he himself has never once been in love. The experience of love is a totally different thing from the discussion of love, although the discussion will of course be far superior if all the participants have known love in their own lives. Consciousness is about language, about concepts. With concepts, we can label things, including feelings, and then we can discuss the labels, independently of our direct experience of them. Everyone discusses God. How many have met God? People that refer to God are never talking about their personal experience of God. They are talking about the concept of God. The concept of God exists even if no such being as God exists, even if there is no one to objectively instantiate the concept. With concepts, we can make things up. Concepts take on a life of their own. Consciousness is where we ponder concepts. We can be conscious of God just by thinking about the concept of God, even if there is no actual God. Provided we have given conceptual labels to all of our experiences, our feelings, perceptions, intuitions, desires, and so on, we can then reflect on these concepts to our heart's content. That's what consciousness is, simply that process of applying concepts to percepts, or, indeed, to other concepts. It's about applying the idea of something to the actual thing. Our idea of the thing and the thing are not the same thing, which is exactly how we create a gap between them, where we do our reflection. Only humans can do this. Animals have no concepts, so no animals are conscious. If you removed any human's conceptualizing ability, you would remove their consciousness. They would still be sentient, they would still sense and feel, they would still have an unconscious, but now they would be just like animals. You have removed what made them human. A human that spent his whole life on a desert island and never acquired any language, any concept-making ability, would never become conscious. Conceptualizing, using language, thinking, reasoning, problem-solving, takes a lot of mental effort. Your brain goes into a high-frequency mode and generates beta brain waves. To be conscious means to be in beta mode. You are aware, conscious, alert, capable of exercising free will. You have agency. You can do stuff. You can make decisions. You can choose. You are active. You have passed the consciousness activation energy barrier. What happens if the brain frequency gets reduced? The clever little girl shouted. Zarathustra grinned once again. He couldn't have been more impressed by the girl's questions. What a sharp mind she had. If the brain reduces its consciousness frequency, he said, which is usually thanks to tiredness, then it slips into a reduced conscious state known as the alpha state. Alpha brain waves replace beta brain waves. Consciousness becomes degraded. The person becomes relaxed, drowsy, less alert, less aware. His will weakens, his agency vanishes, he loses the ability to solve problems. He becomes highly suggestible. His consciousness has gone through a phase transition from active to passive. What happens next? The girl asked. What happens when we keep reducing the brain's frequency? Zarathustra's eye sparkled. Well, first of all we enter the theta state. Theta waves replace alpha waves. That means we have entered light sleep. Afterwards, we descend into the delta state, where we enter deep sleep. The stage beyond is coma, and the stage beyond that is death, where our brain frequency flatlines, where all brain activity has ceased. The connection between mind and brain has broken. The mind is no longer communicating with the body. It's no longer controlling it. Zarathustra abruptly clapped his hands. I promised to tell you about mastering out-of-body experiences, and now I have explained enough to show how it is done. The villagers looked at each other and raised their eyebrows. When you enter the dream state in theta mode, Zarathustra said, your conscious mind is totally passive. It has no ability to work out what is going on or to influence anything. It is being pushed around like a weakling. Only two things can serve up content to the conscious mind: the external world and the internal unconscious. The external world delivers objective, public content. The unconscious delivers subjective, private content. But the unconscious is so good, so creative, that it can produce worlds, situations, events, people, dialogue, dramas, and so on, that are so convincing we accept them as objective reality while we are in the dream state. The passive consciousness simply reacts emotionally to one event after another, all of which are served up by the unconscious mind. The conscious has no control in this environment. It can't solve problems. It can't plan. It has no agency. If you think about how you dream, about what happens in your dreams, you will realize that you hardly ever read anything in a dream, you hardly ever calculate, you very rarely do problem solving, you never do anything requiring careful reasoning and logical analysis. You still understand concepts and language, and you can certainly converse with people in your dreams, but you're never on top of anything. Everything is always slipping away from you. You're being driven along by events. You're never in the driving seat. That's because it's your other mind, your second mind, the unconscious, that is running the show. The unconscious is not a conceptual mind like your consciousness. It's not language-driven as your consciousness is. It's a substantively different kind of mental agent with drastically different mental activity. It's what you get when you change the I from active to passive, and the non-I then becomes active and sets the agenda. So, what is lucid dreaming? The little girl piped up. How does it work? For one so young, she seemed insatiably hungry for knowledge. Good question, Zarathustra said. A normal dream means that overall you are in a theta mode of light sleep, because your unconscious is now dominant. However, your consciousness is not in theta. It typically exists at a passive alpha mode level. The key to lucid dreaming, the sine qua non, is for you to transition your dream consciousness from alpha to beta mode, normal, active consciousness, within your dream. Such a transition has the most incredible consequences. In a normal dream, the unconscious mind is active and serving up its own content to the passive conscious mind. In a lucid dream, the roles are reversed. The conscious mind becomes active, it can read, think, plan, act, and the unconscious mind is rendered passive, as it is in the normal waking state. This means that the conscious mind can then demand that the unconscious mind serves up the content the conscious mind desires. This has the effect of turning the lucid dreamer into a god. He can instruct the unconscious mind to deliver any content he desires, any content whatsoever. He can create worlds, just as the gods do. He is the master of all he surveys. He is the master builder, the great architect, and the unconscious mind is his tireless worker, able to produce whatever design plan it is given by the conscious mind. To dream lucidly is to possess, more or less, the normal beta activity of consciousness within the normal theta activity of dreaming, to such an extent that the conscious mind is dominant and the unconscious mind submissive, the reverse of the normal state of affairs in a dream. So, how can we achieve lucid dreaming? The girl asked. Zarathustra took a small red gadget out of his pocket. Lucid dreamers have to painstakingly train their mind to enable normal consciousness to exist within the dreaming state. Very few people succeed in becoming authentic lucid dreamers. Certain drugs can help. As for me, as I am drifting off to sleep, I apply a specially designed gadget, called the Lucidator, which generates and applies a beta frequency to certain locations on my left hemisphere. This has the effect of establishing a beta domain within my theta wave sleep pattern, allowing me to dream lucidly. It's a tricky balancing act. At the moment, the gadget achieves its goal only a third of the time, but I'm always refining it. I aim to make it 90% reliable. I doubt any percentage better than that can be achieved. He nodded to himself, as if congratulating himself on his ingenuity. There is something even more extraordinary to consider, he said after a pause. If you retain beta mode as you enter the very deepest levels of dreaming, you leave the world served up by the personal unconscious and reach instead the world served up by the collective unconscious. The personal unconscious is an outcrop of the collective unconscious, so if you pass through the whole personal unconscious, you arrive at the collective unconscious, the common substratum that underpins all personal unconsciousnesses. Zarathustra looked pained as he tried to explain a particularly difficult concept to his audience. But there's something quite different about the dreams of the collective unconscious and the dreams of the personal unconscious. He gazed into his audience's eyes to search for signs of understanding. When all minds dream together, he said, they produce the actual world, the objective world. It is not a dream world, it is reality itself. So, and this is absolutely essential to grasp, if you break on through to the bottom level of dreams, and you still have your beta mode intact, you have in fact actually left your dreams and entered the real world, but you are now free of your physical body, because it is fast asleep on your bed. You are now awake, conscious, in the actual world, but unencumbered by a physical body. In this new state, you do not require any body at all, but your mind can, if it likes, imagine one for you. This is known as your residual body image. He gave a little fist pump. You have now entered the world of out-of-body experiences. I understand, the clever little girl exclaimed. What you are saying is that the collective unconscious projects a world, which is actually physical reality. The personal unconscious projects a world too, and we accept it as reality while we are in it, but it's just a subjective dream world that only we can access. No one else knows anything about it. It's not objective. We enter our subjective dream world by going to sleep, by deactivating our body, and then, if we keep going deeper and deeper into the dream, we drop out of our personal unconscious and enter the collective unconscious below it. Now we are in objective reality, except we are seeing it from a completely different perspective from the one we're used to. We normally view it from the local perspective of our body, physically located in the world. Now we are seeing the world from the non-local perspective of our mind, located in the mental singularity, yet able to see the entire physical universe. The girl was possessed of a remarkable fluency, almost as if she were channeling Zarathustra himself. We have accessed a back door to the world, she said. It requires only our mind. The body has become redundant. Out-of-body experiences are possible only because we actually live in a mental reality, not physical, but our habitual perspective is the limited, local one supplied by our physical body. We have been deluded into believing physical reality is real because we see it from a physical body, but it's all just a mental illusion. Our body itself is a mental construct. With its limited senses, it provides a reducing valve. It filters out most of the information available to us, leaving just what is available to our space-time senses, which can only observe our immediate, local environment. It is completely cut off from the non-local domain of mind, outside space, time and matter. Zarathustra shook his head in disbelief. I couldn't have put it any better myself, young lady. Our body enters the physical world via the local front door, so to speak, and has an in-body experience. Our mind, by contrast, has its own route into the world, a non-local back door, allowing us to have an out-of-body experience. The little girl nodded enthusiastically. It's all so obvious, isn't it? She trilled. The adults all looked at each other. They seemed baffled. They hadn't understood a word. I have revealed this great secret to you, Zarathustra said, that lucid dreaming is the precursor of out-of-body experiences. With this knowledge, everything will change for you. Humans who can master out-of-body experiences become angels. Angels are simply those creatures that permanently have out-of-body experiences. Angels always view reality from the non-local perspective of the disembodied mind rather than the local perspective of the embodied mind. The adults raised their eyebrows again. Some smiled. Who doesn't want to have the power of angels? What's a near-death experience? One of them asked. My grandpa said he had one. Zarathustra nodded thoughtfully. A near-death experience is the most extreme version of the out-of-body experience. It happens when, while you are still in beta mode consciousness, you leave spacetime entirely and access the singularity containing all souls, all minds. You can now contact the dead. Not only the dead, but also all the other minds of the living. You can directly interact with the dreams of another person, thus engaging in dream telepathy, which is also called telepathic dreaming or telepathic lucid dreaming. Have you understood? Do you see? Let me run through it again. A beta mode conscious person with a body goes to sleep. If he retains his beta mode consciousness, he can engage in lucid dreaming, where he can control his personal unconscious and make it do his bidding. If he can then access the collective unconscious from the personal unconscious, while still retaining his beta mode consciousness, he can enjoy out-of-body experiences where he can non-locally travel anywhere in the entire physical universe. He can go wherever he likes, just by thinking about it. He is ruled by the power of pure thought, just like angels. Of course, he mostly knows his own world and own solar system, so that's where he explores. If he wishes to push the boundaries to the ultimate extent, he can leave behind space-time altogether and enter the immaterial singularity of mind, the very thing accomplished by near-death experiences and, of course, by death itself. Yet this can also be achieved by out-of-body experiences. Those that can truly master out-of-body experiences, through first mastering lucid dreaming, can, with nothing but the power of the mind, reach all the way to the source, the singularity itself. They can then not only understand ultimate existence, but also directly experience ultimate existence. They have truly become as gods. The adults all looked at each other with bright eyes, captivated by the thought of becoming divine. This is a mental reality, Zarathustra said. It's not physical. When you have an authentic out-of-body experience, you know that beyond any doubt. While your consciousness is attached to your physical body, you imagine that reality is physical, as scientists do. When you attach your consciousness to first your own dreams and then to the objective, collective dream that lies beyond all personal dreams, you find yourself back in the physical world, but now you are present as pure mind. You have escaped all the limitations of the body. You now know that the mind has nothing to do with the body, that it has an entirely separate existence. You know you will not die when your body dies. Your disembodied mind is the proof. And now you have understood the true nature of reality. Let me tell you this. When a big enough star implodes, it forms a black hole singularity. The original star was a physical object in space and time, while the singularity is an immaterial object absent from space and time. Do you see what has happened? The star's contents have left the physical order and joined the mental order. All matter, with mass, with dimensions, has been turned into light, with no mass and no dimensions. If you could accelerate matter to light speed, it would become massless, which is to say maximally length contracted and time dilated. That is, it would have left space and time entirely. If you rewound the physical universe all the way back to t=0, the instant before the beginning of time, you would by that process leave the physical universe and reach pure mind, the singularity. If you depart the material world, you arrive at only one place, mind. Scientists have never grasped that matter is exactly that which is in space and time, and mind exactly that which is not in space and time. Matter is what you observe. Mind is unobservable. Science, an ideology predicated on observation, is entirely unable to analyze mind. My people, we must all go beyond science. We must become one-aeronauts, dream travelers. We must consciously travel within dreams. We must go further than any astronaut or psychonaut. Nothing will restrain us. We acknowledge no limits. There are no barriers that can stop us. We are Faustians, Prometheans, Hyperboreans. We are the illuminated ones. My people, we must become masters of one-aerogens, dream drugs. There are secret societies that have a wide range of dream drugs that enable all depths of dreams to be reached. We must become masters of dream technology. We must fully understand the difference between the two brain hemispheres, and also the function of the corpus callosum, the vital band of tissue that links them. Another way of reaching deep dream levels is by way of hypnosis. The true power and scope of hypnosis has been barely touched upon. The villagers scowled. It all sounds like hard work, they grumbled. But think of the rewards, Zarathustra said. Think of the power you will acquire. You will be far more powerful than the scientists in the next valley. We are all being held back by scientists who deny the existence of mind, dismiss the significance of dreams, deny the reality of out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, ridicule dream telepathy, and refuse to accept that a mental singularity preceded and originated the physical universe. They are blocking human potential. They are stopping us from becoming gods. Dreams are the royal road to understanding reality. They are the gateway to out-of-body experiences. These prove definitively, experience-wise, that reality is mental. Beta, 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 the little girl exclaimed. It's all about beta. Zarathustra nodded. What is humanity's defining problem? It's that humans cannot maintain beta mode consciousness in all circumstances, in their sleep and dreams. If humanity could sustain beta waves in every situation, every human would realize how truly wondrous reality is. But beta mode requires too much energy, and it disrupts the rest and recuperation of sleep. Humanity would go insane if it had beta consciousness the whole time. It would never be able to take a break from itself. Evolution has seen the need to simplify and reduce our mental powers. Aldous Huxley said, to make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. What comes out at the other end is a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive on the surface of this particular planet. I tell you, Zarathustra said, evolution has made us what we are, feeble and pathetic, really. Evolution went for simplicity. Can you imagine the contest between violent, focused, primitive humans that thought too little, and distracted, unfocused humans that thought too much? The latter were wiped out by natural selection, the savages slaughtered them. Evolution hasn't yet provided the scope to allow our minds to explore their full potential. The task has proved too complicated and expensive thus far. The simple-minded masses kill off or isolate the rare humans who could lead us to a more evolved future. Everyone like me is forced to become a hermit and hide out. Some of us live in caves, others in forests, others on the tops of mountains. 6,000 feet beyond man and time, as Nietzsche said. Imagine that hundreds of thousands of years ago there were humans that could routinely engage in lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences. They would be constantly distracted, not fully present to the moment. Simple, brutal humans, with totally degraded and focused consciousness, would make mincemeat of them and kill them off. Only now do we have a civilization that can afford powerful minds. Is there a higher frequency mode than beta? The girl asked, as a yapping dog ran past her. Yes, Zarathustra said. Beta waves, at their maximum, deal with discursive reasoning, which means step-by-step reasoning. Above beta waves are gamma waves. When you enter gamma mode, you have epiphanies, eureka moments. You are seized by incredible flashes of intuition that give you the big picture all at once. No steps are involved. Everything is presented whole and entire. This is the mode where you truly feel like God. People associate the gamma state with enlightenment, with gnosis, where some people say that all conscious perceptions are united in one grand view of all of reality. A feeling of ecstasy, bliss, contentment or universal love is often encountered. The mind is fully alert, awake, expanded. Everything is operating at maximum. All brain capacity is used at once. Nothing is left out. All systems are go. No one can sustain this state. It goes as quickly as it comes. If you could remain in this state, you really would be a god. Zarathustra smiled and suddenly the village and all of its inhabitants vanished. He woke up. His lucid dream was over for tonight. If he really did attempt to venture down into the real village at the foot of his mountain, he knew the people would kill him. They despised the mountain hermits. They always had. The perspectives. From the perspective of the body, you live in a vast external world of space, time and matter. From the perspective of the mind, you live in an immaterial singularity, outside space and time. All of the information of the space-time universe is mathematically encoded inside the singularity. The space-time world is just a perspective, a representation, a projection of mental information, a hologram. That's why an out-of-body experience can reveal the entire universe to you. The universe is a mental construct, and your mind can explore any part of the construct, without reference to any limited, restricted body fixed in a particular portion of space and time. Reality is a giant wave interference pattern where the whole is present in every part, so you always have access to the whole, if you can achieve the right perspective. Come and see. Do you understand the connection between lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences? What constitutes the ultimate empirical evidence that materialism is false? It's when you have an out-of-body experience and are able to see what's going on anywhere in the room where your body is lying fast asleep. But you can do much more than that, of course. You can travel anywhere in the world, anywhere in the galaxy, anywhere in the universe. You can go into black holes, entirely unscathed. After all, you have no body that can suffer any damage. Moreover, you can pop out of the black hole anywhere you like. The black hole singularity is part of the singularity that interconnects the whole of space-time and serves as the ultimate wormhole. Isn't it time to not only learn the secrets of the universe, but actually experience them too? Aren't you tired of human limitations? It's time to transform yourself into an incorporeal angel. Angels naturally exist in the OBE state. Natural OBEs. How do out-of-body experiences occur naturally? Some people are born with far fewer barriers between the waking and dreaming states. A person who talks in their sleep, who sleepwalks, who has incredibly vivid dreams, who remembers most of their dreams, who suffers from extreme insomnia, or narcolepsy, or sleep terrors, and so on across a wide spectrum of sleep disorders, is much more predisposed to lucid dreaming and then out-of-body experiences than anyone who enjoys tranquil, undisturbed sleep. It's almost impossible for a happy sleeper to have an out-of-body experience in normal circumstances. They would need to take drugs, apply technology, impose extreme states of fasting or meditation on themselves, or something similar, to put themselves in a sufficiently abnormal state to have an out-of-body experience. Authority. In a critical encounter between Freud and Jung, Freud said, "I cannot risk my authority." Jung later said, at that moment, he lost all of his authority. The close relationship of the two great psychologists collapsed. In trying to preserve his authority, Freud made it impossible to retain it. His weakness was patent to Jung. Ego and self. The Jungian self, to the extent that it can be physically located, is in the right hemisphere of the brain. The Jungian ego is in the left hemisphere. Why? Because the ego is associated with language. Language runs constantly in our head, producing a continuous narrative in our waking mind. That is simply what the ego is, that continuous language-mediated story. The persona, the mask we don in public, is the censored ego, the ego that is forced to say what is socially acceptable rather than what it is really thinking. Without language, there is no ego. Animals have no ego. Nor do some humans, such as severe autistics, who have no language capacity. The ego uses language. The self, by contrast, is wordless. The self understands reality numerically, not verbally. It is mathematics that allows us to bridge the gap between ego and self, numerical language rather than verbal language. New Agers and many followers of Eastern religion believe that language is what stops us from getting in touch with core reality. In fact, language, mathematical language, is core reality. You can't escape from language. The real task is to migrate from fallacious man-made language to nature's own language of mathematics, not to abandon language entirely. A language universe is an ordered universe, a cosmos. A non-language universe is a chaos. Such a universe is impossible since no part of it would be able to communicate with any other part. A chaos would be infinitely unstable and self-destruct instantly. Zarathustra. Zarathustra said, "Friends, here is the highest wisdom. You must go into yourself, into your inner world, in order to come out into the outer world, as a mind, freed of bodily limitations." The physical universe is just a mental hologram being projected within a collective mind. With a finite body and its limited physical senses, you can see only a tiny portion of the universe. Freed of this physical reducing valve, you can see the entire universe. You have become mind at large. As William Blake said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. The mind freed of the body has total perception. By definition, you cannot have an out-of-body experience within a body. So, how do you escape from your body? Only by utilizing the incredible potentialities and capacities of your mind. Your normal conscious mind is so tied to your body that it practically identifies with your body. To liberate the power of your mind, you need to overcome this identification. You first of all need to descend into the amazing world of your personal unconscious, catabasis, go down, where only your own capacity for creation limits what you can do. You then drop into the collective unconscious where you can encounter the whole universe, but from the mind's perspective, not that of the body. In some sense, you have gone full circle and gone up, anabasis. The mind, unlike the body, is free to travel wherever it likes. It can fly, since it does not experience gravity. It can travel at light speed. It never tires. Its range is unlimited. It requires no oxygen, no food, no water, no fuel. Do you understand, friends? The universe has a back door, your own mind. Via this back door, this mental portal to the physical universe, a mind gate, you can access the physical universe via mind, not body. That's what an out-of-body experience is. The science of the out-of-body experience is in its infancy because science denies the reality of such an experience and dismisses it as mere illusion and delusion, as nothing but an invention of a troubled mind, or a mind in some peculiar state of distress, or reflecting abnormal chemistry. These people will never get it. When you master out-of-body experiences, your power is more or less unlimited. You are, in effect, a god. You can go anywhere, visit anyone and anywhere you like, discover any secret information hidden anywhere. In the movie Inception, dream hackers crack the secrets of subjects by manipulating their dreams. In an out-of-body experience, you can see inside any safe, you can enter any locked room, you can engage with any other mind via its most secret telepathic passageways. But, my friends, do not delude yourself that this divine gift, to which we all have access, comes without cost. The danger of psychosis is high. Regular practitioners of out-of-body experiences can easily lose touch with reality, or become bored and uninterested in physical reality. I teach you this, my brothers and sisters. You must first practice lucid dreaming before moving on to OBEs. Lucid dreaming brings you before the gates of heaven. However, be much more cautious about out-of-body experiences. The experts say it should be practiced only a few times a year. They have the drugs that make it possible to engineer OBEs almost at will. But they strictly ration these drugs, and they give them only to the most stable and robust one-aeronauts. These drugs are the most precious on earth, the drugs that allow humans to be gods. No high is greater, but such highs are also the most addictive and thus the most destructive. This is no game. One-aeronauts that go too far undergo Jungian inflation and acquire an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Where a true god should be humble and altruistic, a false god, a devil, is arrogant and selfish. That fate must be avoided at all costs. Who were the fallen angels? They were the biblical watchers. They were human but had a genetic mutation that allowed them to have OBEs at will. Using their out-of-body expertise, they could watch over the human race and see everything that was going on. They became intoxicated by their power and turned wicked. However, it was in fact the extraordinary powers, talents and capabilities they manifested that made the masses become hyper-religious and certain of the existence of gods. In bicameral times, ordinary humans were much more capable of lucid dreaming and OBEs than the people of today. What has happened is that left-brain discursive reasoning, beta-mode consciousness, has altered the frequency patterns of the brain and bound us much more closely to the physical world than the mental. Our physical senses have become much sharper, entrenching us in physicalism. The physical, thanks to our senses, seems incredibly real. Bicameral humans were mostly alpha mode beings, with only a primitive beta mode, left hemisphere consciousness. They had a gamma mode numinous god in their right hemisphere, a master of intuitive flashes, whom they obeyed without question. The boundary between the physical world and the personal dream world was highly permeable, and everyone was highly suggestible. Bicameral humans experienced reality entirely different from us. They did so in a far more religious and spiritual way. It's clear that the Ba and Ka soul components of ancient Egyptian religion were not abstract concepts but concrete entities of which the Egyptians all had direct experience. The Ba was the entity that underwent out-of-body experiences, hence could travel to the afterlife after death. The Ka was an astral body, a residual image, a double of the physical body, Ka, that stayed in the vicinity of its physical doppelganger. It could be liberated only by entering into union with the Ba to form the A, an immortal being. No one invented the idea of the soul. In ancient times, the soul was once a completely natural part of everyone's life. There were no atheists, no materialists, no skeptics, no nihilists. Why did things change? The ancient Greeks were the first to achieve well-developed beta waves. The Greek philosophers were the first truly conscious individuals. The Greek atomists and skeptics were the first atheists, the first to lose the ability to relate to the soul, the first to become locked into sensory mode and physicalism. They were probably the first humans to appear on the autistic spectrum. Science finds the whole idea of the soul absurd. It even reduces the mind, the very thing by which all scientists think, to some emergent property of aggregates of mindless things. What kind of diseased mind is eager to deny its own reality, in order to promote the reality of some mindless, lifeless thing, matter? There is nothing stranger than that materialists deny primary reality, mental reality, in favor of secondary reality, what mind perceives. Without mind, nothing would be perceived, and no scientist would know anything at all about matter. Suggestibility. Bicameral humanity was highly suggestible. It operated as a mass rather than as a group of individuals. Bicameral humans were like Jews at the Wailing Wall, Catholics at St. Peter's Square, Muslims at Mecca, Republicans at a Trump rally, or Nazis at Nuremberg. In bicameral times, there were no anarchists, libertarians, or extreme individualists. People were highly conformist. A highly suggestible person accepts as real whatever is suggested to him in the moment. Such a person is highly prone to false memories, suggested by his own ego trying to defend its self-image. He always allows personal, subjective content and wishful thinking to leak into public, objective content. Mass suggestibility isn't alien to today's humanity. Look at how many other directed people there are. Look at how many conform to fashion, fads, trends, whatever's popular. They have no time for the difficult and unpopular. Things go viral because people are conformist, not because people are anti-conformist. Conspiracy theories succeed because they are spread by manipulative, dominant, fanatical individuals who are highly persuasive to submissive, suggestible individuals. Religions are based on conformism and suggestibility. So are political ideologies, so are philosophies. So is science. The rise of beta waves changed humanity from highly suggestible to a lower degree of suggestibility. People became that bit more individualistic. Individualistic religions, political ideologies, and philosophies sprang up. The collective became demonized in some circumstances. Nevertheless, multitudes of humanity remain more or less bicameral and suggestible. All religious believers are of this kind. Brain waves, how to change your world. Brain waves, brain frequencies, are the basis of our physical reality. Sinusoidal waves rules mental reality while brain waves, wave functions made from sinusoids, rule our physical reality. To change our reality, all we need to do is change our brainwave patterns. Easier said than done, of course. Drugs are the easiest way to change brainwave states. A hypnotist can be highly effective too, as can immersion in a crowd, a mob, as can technology, such as transcranial magnetic stimulation, a technique which applies magnetic pulses to the brain. The frequency of pulse delivery influences whether brain activity is increased or decreased. Stimulation of the left side of the brain can have opposite effects on mood regulation compared with stimulation of the right side of the brain. Hypnosis. How does hypnosis work? The hypnotist sends the subject from beta mode into alpha mode. This means that the subject is no longer able to exercise his own will, his own agency. He is now suggestible. He can be commanded. His alpha mode passive mind is receptive to commands, unlike his beta mode active mind, which itself likes to command. When a mind drops out of beta waves into alpha waves, it becomes easy to manipulate. Many people barely reach an effective beta mode. They are essentially in alpha mode all the time, hence are easy to exploit. They are highly suggestible. Julian James's bicameral humans were of this kind. The kind of people that show up at Donald Trump's rallies are clearly not beta mode individuals. They constantly exhibit mass mind behavior. While proclaiming themselves great individuals, they show no individuality at all. All are wearing the Trump uniform of red MAGA hat and red t-shirt. Colin Wilson wrote, Pierre Janet recognized that an illness like schizophrenia is a scattering of attention, a loss of concentration. We express it precisely when we say that someone is not all there. All where? All there, where the mind should be focused. Focusing, concentration, is a mental act, and it is a function of the will just as breathing is a function of the lungs or digestion of the stomach. The definition of a healthy person is a person who is focusing and concentrating with a sense of vital purpose. Beta mode is all about focus. Alpha mode is where focus is lost. The person has relaxed too much to exert focus. If you notice yourself daydreaming or partially nodding off, you will realize that you have little or no focus in this state. A hypnotist can externally supply focus for someone via hypnotic commands. Someone with intrinsic lack of focus, or who acquired a mental illness that degraded their capacity to focus, might start hallucinating internal voices and succumb to schizophrenia, or even multiple personality syndrome. These are diseases of the will, of focus. An unfocused mind is a mad mind. Social media, by providing constant distraction, by scattering attention everywhere, is leading to increasing mental illness. The bicameral people of the past were people of alpha mode, not beta mode, hence routinely heard internal voices. When consciousness fails to provide a strong inner voice of command, the unconscious will supply it instead, or an external voice such as that of a hypnotist, demagogue, or the mob will take its place. It's essential to concentrate consciousness, not to disperse it. Under hypnosis, a person told that he will be paralyzed when he wakes up is indeed paralyzed. Under hypnosis, a person told that his finger has been touched by a red-hot iron wakes up with a terrible blister on his finger. What does this tell us? The suggestion of the affliction, rather than the actual affliction, causes real physical consequences. This is impossible in a material world, but not in a mental world. Mind can do anything it likes, if it puts its mind to it. If mind can create the effects of a disease or affliction that does not physically exist, it can also create the cure for a disease that does exist. Active imagination. If, in lucid dreaming, we can have beta consciousness in a theta dream state, then symmetry demands that we can have a theta dream state in beta consciousness. Colin Wilson wrote, Jung made what might be regarded as his most important discovery, that he could, in fact, dream while awake, create an inner world of imagination with such vividness that it became a reality. He called it active imagination. Jung wrote, active imagination requires a state of reverie, halfway between sleep and waking. The method of active imagination is the most important auxiliary for the production of those contents of the unconscious which lie, as it were, immediately below the threshold of consciousness, and, when intensified, are the most likely to erupt spontaneously into the conscious mind. Jung developed techniques to enhance his reveries. He wrote, in order to seize hold of these fantasies, I frequently imagined a steep descent. I even made several attempts to get to very bottom. The first time I reached, as it were, a depth of about 1,000 feet, the next time I found myself at the edge of a cosmic abyss. It was like a voyage to the moon, or a descent into empty space. First came the image of a crater, and I had the feeling I was in the land of the dead. The atmosphere was that of the other world. Jung could turn his dream characters into personalities that he accepted as having reality in themselves. In Jung's mind, the archetypal figure of the wise old man condensed into a sage he encountered for real, whom he called Philemon. Jung wrote, Philemon and other figures of my fantasies brought home to me the crucial insight that there are things in the psyche which I do not produce, but which produce themselves and have their own life. Philemon represented a force which was not myself. In my fantasies I held conversations with him, and he said things which I had not consciously thought. For I observed clearly that it was he who spoke, not I. He said I treated thoughts as if I generated them myself, but in his view thoughts were like animals in the forest, or people in a room, or birds in the air, and added, if you should see people in a room, you would not think that you had made those people, or that you were responsible for them. It was he who taught me psychic objectivity, the reality of the psyche. Through him the distinction was clarified between myself and the object of my thought. He confronted me in an objective manner, and I understood that there is something in me which can say things that I do not know and do not intend, things which may even be directed against me. Philemon represented superior insight. At times he seemed to me quite real, as if he were a living personality. I went walking up and down the garden with him, and to me he was what the Indians call a guru. Did Muhammad conjure the angel Gabriel, as Jung conjured Philemon? Did Moses conjure Jehovah in like manner? Did Jesus conjure a higher being and then identify with that higher being? Sleepwalking. What is sleepwalking? If our conscious mind can be lucid in sleep, in dreams, the unconscious mind can equally be lucid in waking, in the real world, in space-time. This is called sleepwalking. If the lucid conscious can make the unconscious do stuff in the dream world, the lucid, active, unconscious can make the physical body do stuff in the physical world, without the person having the slightest degree of conscious awareness.
And that is the first hour of Jack Tanner's Zarathustra's out-of-body experience, how humans become angels. I hope you enjoyed this initial installment. We'll be returning with another hour very soon. Be sure to visit www.armageddonconspiracy.co.uk for a list of approved Armageddon conspiracy authors and some synopsises of books that these authors are writing. If you see a book that interests you, be sure to visit Amazon.com and check out that book. It may just open your eyes to a whole new reality. And if you like this presentation, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, this has been The Spoken Conspiracy.